Hi everyone, on this video we're going to be looking at how to draft and edit your writing. Now specifically this is going to focus on anyone that is studying level 1 or level 2 functional skills English. We're going to think about how to check our work for errors and how to make improvements, and really just think about how can we get ready and revise and practice for the writing assessment. Look at the images. Which one best describes how you feel about the writing assessment at this moment? So if you look at the images there on the left hand side, we have someone who's clearly showing a sign of success. They've got their arm raised in triumph above their head, showing us that they really feel confident about the writing assessment. On the right hand side, however, you have someone who's clearly feeling a sense of anxiousness or anxiety. So out of those two, which one will kind of best describe how you're feeling at the moment? I just want to think about that and then really try and assess where you are at the moment on your journey of actually being able to feel confident stepping into that exam. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to recall the importance of drafting and editing, understand how to analyse a response to make improvements, and apply your understanding to plan your own response to a writing question. Look at the exam response and attempt the following questions. So we're doing something slightly different today. Then rather than looking at the question first, we're going to look at an actual response. So this has been written by an actual student. So it says, to whoever is in charge, I am writing to you today to explain how angry I was with my experience while using your company. If you guys had actual stores, I'd come in there and sort this out face to face, man to man. I mean, what kind of place is it that takes your hard-earned cash and then takes weeks to deliver the bloody thing you've ordered? 2 weeks ago, I ordered one of your mobile phones and the blinking thing took ages to arrive. When it finally did come, I was so angry. The box was damaged and damp, probably from being left out in the rain, and when I opened the thing, there was no charger cable or anything. Contacting the helpline was no good either. I spent a good 20 minutes or so speaking to an AI bot who was about as much use as a chocolate teapot in July. I was so angry I just wanted to smash my computer. So now that we've read through it, we're just going to have a look at a couple of questions just to test your comprehension and really think about the quality of the writing that we've just went through. Using the response you've just read, attempt the following questions. Number 1. What do you think the writing question was about? So we've seen the response, but we didn't actually get to see the question. So if you think about the main things that it was actually discussing within the actual extract, what do you think the question was actually focused on? Number 2. Have they wrote in a successful manner? So what we mean by that is, have they actually explained clearly and concisely what they're trying to argue about? Have they got their message across? And have they used the kind of techniques that we've been looking at in our last couple of lessons? Number 3. How many DeForest techniques have been used? Now, if you're not too sure what we mean when we say DeForest techniques, this is the acronym that we use to include a main variety of language techniques that can be successful in this type of writing. Number 4, how has the writer used any higher level techniques? So these are things that we've covered in our previous lessons. So we've got simile, metaphor and hyperbole. And number 5, identify where the response could be separated into paragraphs. And the hint there is that it can be separated into 3 paragraphs, or possibly more depending on how you want to break that down. If you're not too sure where the paragraph should go, do check out our other lesson that goes into how to actually structure your writing and talks about tip top and all those other kind of things that you need to know. Number 6, identify where the writer could have used brackets. Number 7, has the response used formal or informal language? Select a quotation to justify your answer. Number 8, what would be an appropriate salutation for this kind of question? Now, if you're not sure what I mean when we say salutation, a salutation is a greeting, normally something that you'd expect to find at the start of an email or a letter. Number 9, how far down on the punctuation pyramid has this learner reached? Again, if you're not too sure what I mean by the punctuation pyramid, do go back and check out our other videos that go into it in more depth. And our final one, number 10, identify 2 suitable adjectives to replace the word angry in this response. Try writing the sentence out to see if it makes sense. That's a really good piece of advice there, because if you're unsure about the adjective, actually reading it out loud is a really good indicator to see if the sentence still makes sense now you've replaced it with the suitable adjective. If you want to pause the video here and go through it at your own time, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead and go through the answers in the next part of the video. class feedback, check your answers against the ones below. So for number 1 then, the question would be on writing a letter of complaint to an electronics store after having a bad experience with their service. Number 2, there are some successful elements, however when you actually look at the writing as a whole, the tone is far too aggressive to be considered successful writing. Number 3, so in total 4 deforest techniques were used. We have things like direct address, rhetorical questions, emotive language and alliteration. Now if I haven't included any that you're thinking of as we went through, please do leave a comment below and we'll have that little discussion and that back and forth. It might be there are more techniques when you think about the whole passage as well. Number 4, the writer has used a simile in the line about as much use as the chocolate teapot in July. Number 5, the response could be separated into 3 paragraphs, and these are the following lines that I'd separate them into. So my first paragraph then would begin, I am writing to you today. The second paragraph is where it starts to say 2 weeks ago. Now if you think about our tip top and when we need to break things down, it's things like time, place and things like that. So clearly if we've changed the time, we'd need a new paragraph. And the final one, contacting the helpline was no good either. And the reason why this one has a new paragraph is because we've changed the actual topic or the subject that we're actually referring to. So we're not just complaining about one thing, we've actually changed our focus and we're talking about our issues with the helpline. Okay, so our next one's then. So number 6, the writer could have used brackets in the line, probably from being left out in the rain, as it adds additional information for the reader. Number 7, the response has used informal or colloquial language. This is evident in the following lines, hard-earned cash, to whoever is in charge, the blinking thing took ages, no charger or anything, and I spent 20 good mins, which obviously is short for minutes. Number 8, an appropriate salutation, which is a greeting, would be to whom it may concern. Now this is a really good one to use, especially if you don't know who it is you're actually addressing the letter or the email to. This makes it seem formal without actually being able to direct it at a specific person as well. Number 9, so level 3 uses some of the basic forms of punctuation, the full stop, comma, question mark and exclamation mark. So essentially it's still kind of using the basic forms of punctuation, it's not getting to the lower levels of the punctuation pyramid, which is what we're aiming for if we want really high level forms of writing. It might not be something that's specifically going to knock you down in terms of functional skills, but if you are going to go on to GCSE, you definitely want to try and get as far down that punctuation pyramid as possible. And our final one, number 10, answers may include frustrated, furious, enraged, or devastated, and you can see there I've put etc. So it might mean that some of the adjectives that you came up with might not actually be on the list, but if you're not sure, leave us a comment, we can always have that conversation and that back and forth. If you still don't want to do that, just try reading it out loud and see if it actually sounds right when you read it out loud, because that can make a really big difference in the long run. Developing your writing. So here are some key things that you need to remember. So first thing we're going to focus on is how are you gaining marks. So have a think about all the techniques that we went through lately. So we're talking about our deforest techniques and also our higher level techniques as well. Think, have you used a range of language techniques? And if you're not sure what we mean by a range, this should be really about 4 or 5 in the whole body of your writing. Structural techniques. So have you structured your writing appropriately? So over the last few lessons as well, we've also been talking about things like paragraphs and your sentence structure. So are all of your sentences the same length? Have you mixed them up depending on the tone and the pace of your writing? And have you separated it into paragraphs in an appropriate way? Then finally, SPAG. Have you used a range of sophisticated spelling, grammar and punctuation? Just really make sure that the basic level is at a good level as well, because really with functional skills we're thinking about, are you actually being able to present yourself and write in a way that's going to attract things like employers, pad out your CV and just generally show that you can communicate in an effective manner. So now we're moving on to fail and sail. Now these are two key terms that I use with all of my writing, doesn't matter whether it's functional skills or GCSE or even higher. So what we mean by this is fail is another acronym. We love acronyms in English. So fail is our first attempt in learning. So this is just to get your head around the idea that whenever you try writing for the first time, it isn't necessarily going to be perfect. In fact, quite often it won't be. The thing to understand is that it's your first attempt. So you need to get used to the idea that it won't be perfect and that it needs editing and adapting and changing, and there will be errors in there, but that's okay. We need to focus on what is positive and then what also needs to be developed to bring your writing up to that good level. That's when our second attempt comes into play. So we have our fail, which is our first attempt in learning, and we have our sail, which is our second attempt in learning. So this is where you use feedback from your teacher to improve your writing. Without this, you just won't be able to improve. So with that being said, if you are practicing this all by yourself, please do try and get in touch. Get someone to mark it. If it's not me, make your actual teacher mark it as well, because without that feedback, really, you could just be repeating the same mistakes over and over again and not really developing on your learning process. A good thing to think about as well is with your teacher's top tip. You should never really bin your writing. You should always keep it somewhere so that you can track your progress over time. Try and improve and rewrite some of your pieces and get used to drafting and editing your writing. This is often something that people find the hardest to do as well. But imagine if you're in an exam and you can read back through your work and you identify a few errors and then you're able to go back and change those. It could be a massive difference between a pass and a fail in your overall exam. Look at the writing question and attempt the challenges that follow. You've recently purchased a new mobile phone from an online store. When the phone arrived, however, it was damaged and broken. Your task: write a letter of complaint to the business expressing how you feel and how you'd like the problem to be resolved. In your response, you should write in a clear, coherent manner, write in full sentences, have a good quality of spag, draft and edit your response to get more marks. So these are the main things that you'd see, not only within the actual writing assessment, but I've also added a few of my own as well, just to make sure that you're building on the things that we spoke about in these videos. So first thing, when we're looking at this task, I'd like you to identify the TAP of the exam question. Now, if you're not too sure what we mean by that, the TAP is the topic, the audience, and the purpose. And this is going to help you to actually break down the question and make sure you're focusing on what you need to focus on to achieve a decent mark. For the super challenge then, I'd like to come up with 3 or 4 ideas to help structure your writing. And then the mega challenge, use the DeForest acronym to help plan your response. So if you've watched any of these videos before, you'll know that we talk about the DeForest techniques all the time. A really good way to use this in your writing assessment is to write the acronym DeForest down the side of your page, and every time that you've used one of those techniques, just give yourself a little tick to actually show that you're using a range of language techniques in your writing. Sail. Look at the second attempt in learning and attempt the challenges that follow. So what we're looking at now is the same response that we looked at earlier, but what the learner has done is they've gone away, they've actually looked at the feedback given by the teacher and they've rewrote it to try and edit it and make improvements. So the bits that are going to be in blue are going to be the ones where we've got the improvement, and you can already see straight away that they've made a change. So they've started it then to whom it may concern. I'm writing to you today to explain how disappointed I was with my experience while using your company. If you guys had actual stores, at least then I could have expressed my frustration and hopefully been able to leave the store feeling as though the issue had been resolved. I feel completely let down to have paid for my order and then being forced to wait 4 weeks for the order to arrive. Let me get straight to the point. I am horrified by the lack of customer service and would like a refund in full. Now, if we think about this response so far, what they've done is they've very clearly expressed how they're feeling. They haven't got angry, which is a big problem with the tone of the last response, and they've also kept a nice even pace through what they're trying to say. They've even done a little summary at the end there with that let me get straight to the point, and actually pointed out what they want to happen by the end of the writing. Okay, they'd like a refund in full, which is really the purpose of the whole piece and why they've put pen to paper. 2 weeks ago, I ordered one of your mobile phones and the product took ages to arrive. When it finally did come, I was furious. The box was damaged and damp, probably from being left out in the rain, and when I opened the thing, there was no charger cable or anything. Contacting the helpline was no good either. I spent a good 20 minutes or so speaking to an AI bot who was about as much use as a chocolate teapot in July. I was so angry, frustrated and exhausted that I felt utterly let down by your store and the whole experience. So you can see there we've got a number of different words and phrases that have been highlighted in blue, and this just tells you the slight changes that the writer has made to actually improve their response over time. So it's a really good habit to get into, to look back at your old writing as well and see if you can edit and draft it to actually make it successful in your exam. In terms of our next lesson, we're going to be covering the following things. So we're going to recall the writing question for this lesson. We're then going to understand how to craft an effective response, and we're going to apply your understanding to draft and edit your own response to the exam question. So all of this is going to be building on everything that we've looked at today. So it's really important, if you haven't done so already, to like and subscribe. Then you'll be kept up to date on all the latest videos and all the new content. If you need any additional support or help, the new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much for listening, guys, and all the best with your work and revision in the future. Thank you. Bye bye.